so much for hanging out. It's not every day I get to sit down and talk with my direct report face to face like this.
Sure.
But I kind of want to get just everybody. That's why we're doing this, is to get everybody's perspective on just kind of what's going on in the world right now in regards to IT. Before we get into that, maybe kind of start with just who you are, your role here, what you do, and what's maybe one thing that you like about what you do here.
Sure. Yeah. Paul Bischer with Grid Technologies, obviously, responsible for business development. So the sales side, the marketing side, all together. Really, it's the sales and the marketing side. How do we position ourselves and what we do to the community and the communities that we're in? We're a Michigan-based company, Detroit, Grand Rapids, and potentially moving beyond that. But how do we position ourselves? How do we have, what are the things that we do for the businesses and the clients that we serve? And making sure that, the community at large understands what services we provide and how we can help.
No, I like that. Let's kind of talk about, there's a lot of things in the IT space, but what are maybe what's maybe one topic or maybe a couple topics that everybody seems to be really talking about right now?
Yeah, I think two of the big ones are security and then AI.
Yeah.
I think security is the better known of the two. Security is something that I think everybody has an idea that, there are threats out there, and those threats are persistent. And they're ever changing in terms of kind of attack vector, if you will.
Yeah.
The challenge is building up those defenses and getting people to understand that not only are these threats real and persistent, but eventually they're going to break through unless you do something about it. It's not a matter of when or if, but it's when it happens. So you want to reduce the severity, or you want to reduce the potential. That's the first challenge. And the second challenge is, how do you reduce the severity when it does happen? Is this something that an attacker gets in and they're shut down immediately, isolated, quarantined, and dealt with? Or is it something where an attacker gets in, they hide out in your environment, and they pull what they need without anybody knowing about it for a period of time? So there's two different ways to look at it from that perspective. The opportunity or the probability, reducing that, and then when it does occur, reducing the severity of that attack. So that's the security side of things. What are we doing? What are businesses doing? What should they be doing? Those are the types of conversations that we're having. The lesser known is, obviously, and the newer one is AI. What should we do with AI? What should we as a company be doing with AI? Not only from how do we leverage it, but how do we protect ourselves from potential issues with AI? If I input information into a ChatGPT or one of the other LLM models, what potentially happens to that information? So I think people have to really kind of approach it very cautiously. It's good to explore, and a lot of companies are starting to do that. But I think, going back to the security conversation, there's a security side of that as well that has to be considered.
Yeah, no, I'd say it's pretty accurate, at least from talking with the other guys, and what I would say clients are coming to us and asking us about. What are maybe some of the more direct maybe concerns about, say, AI? Like, people are obviously interested in it, they're excited about it, but what are maybe some more examples on some of the concerns that you've seen?
So I think on the opportunistic side, people are concerned that other companies are starting to use and leverage AI, and they feel like they're behind the game on that. So I think that's what we're hearing a lot of. A lot of clients are saying, how should we be using this? How do we leverage this? What do we do with it? And then on the security side, how do we protect ourselves? How do we make sure that if we're going to leverage AI, how do we do it in a way that doesn't spill the beans, as it were? How do we protect ourselves, our data, from getting out into the environment? We don't want those large language models to learn about our information and share that with the world at large.
Do you have anybody that you're familiar with that is starting to use it successfully? and if they are, how are they using it? And I'm sure that varies between vertical and the business type and everything too.
Yeah,
But
we're all hearing news accounts of how different industries are leveraging AI. Obviously, with content creation and things like that, with automation, automating part of their businesses. Chatbots on websites is an example of AI. A lot of service organizations are looking at putting those on their website just to make it easier for someone to get answers to questions that they can't readily or easily find. So I think you're seeing a lot of that with different SaaS organizations, putting that as a quick reference to getting answers quickly, which is a service, which is a help. You're taking a person out of that role, allowing them to be productive elsewhere, and letting AI answer those, kind of simple questions.
Okay, well, that makes a lot of sense. Concerns with AI, you talked about, data being, concern. What about reports on cybersecurity, artificial intelligence? Some people I've talked with, are surprised to hear that hackers have their own type of AI variants and stuff. Can you shed some light on that world a little bit? Like what are you seeing in that side of things?
Yeah, I mean that's where the cybersecurity and the AI interface gets really concerning and scary. Is when cyber criminals start to leverage AI tools to do what they do. Whether it's deep fakes. Whether it's creating some very realistic conversations via email. It's not the same old email scams of years ago where you could spot the irregularities in language and whatnot. The language is getting very good, and they're using those AI models to scan email conversations if they get credentials, and they can scan somebody's inbox to understand how they communicate, the style with which they communicate, and mimic conversations, based on past conversations, past emails. They're using that as part of their social engineering schemes. So that's the kind of the scary part of that as well. Also, if they can get someone to think that their AI is ChatGPT, then they start putting information in there that could then be used against the user as well. So it's a little bit of the Wild West in some ways, where people want to start leveraging and using it, but they have to do so with due caution because the cyber criminals are doing the same thing. Yeah,
it's kind of a double-edged sword,
100%.
from what I'm seeing on there. I think I was talking with Rick and a couple other people here too, and it seems like some of the business owners are just kind of doing a big sigh of throwing in the towel and kind of being done with it all. Is there any, with all the new AI stuff, the cybersecurity stuff, it just seems like there's more and more and more every year, and more focus on, the end user, being, the kind of the gateway to everything here and all of that. In the simplest way possible, could you maybe offer one or two tips to anybody that is looking at this seriously and saying, this is where you can start, as far as, at least going down the path of getting things corrected to where, it's not a hassle? What would you say be something?
In terms of security or AI?
I kind of lump it together because I would say security, like where would you start? I think security needs to be first before you implement anything AI related, to be honest. So if you were to say one or two things you could do starting today, what would those maybe one or two things be?
Yeah, I think, what we've seen is that, from a individual perspective, that AI can be, and when I say AI, I'm referring to legitimate AI or large language model platforms, using them as, in a sense, an assistant for the work that you do, to either generate ideas or perhaps brainstorm troubleshoot, work their way through issues and challenges. I think that's a good, safe way to potentially start without revealing too much information about your business per se. That's probably a good way to get started without exposing yourself to any of the risks that are associated with potentially bad actors getting your information. And I think that's probably a good way, and that's probably the way most individuals are looking at this right now.
Yeah.
Looking at it as a digital assistant, and I think that's probably safe at this point, as long as they're using, again, the legitimate platforms out there.
I gotcha. Cool. Kind of talk about cybersecurity as a whole. We work with a lot of people. We've worked with people, in multiple ways in that world. Have you encountered any stories where, somebody had a compromise of some type? If so, could you shed some light on that? Like what, you don't have to share the details of who it was, but just,
Sure.
Can you share, some insight on like what that was, what the impact was?
Yeah, I mean, again, it goes back to the idea that a lot of organizations think it's just something that's not going to happen to them, and the truth of it is that there are people that punch the clock every day, going to work looking for ways to get into organizations, and they know generally the smaller the organization, the more likely, the less likely they are to have the right defenses in place, and the more likely they are to be able to get in. We have countless stories of, especially with email compromise, where somebody gets a hold of somebody's credentials because they didn't have secure passwords.
Right.
They get a hold of those credentials, they get into their mailbox, and they start sending out PDFs, that look like RFQs or RFPs. And that's really prevalent in the construction industry. We see a lot of that because folks in the construction industry are used to getting PDF documents of, hey, here's a RFP, here's a drawing, here's a site plan. They're clicking on it. And they're asking for credentials. You click on it, and it opens up to a SharePoint site or OneDrive, and they're asking for their credentials. Quick way to get another set of credentials they can exploit. But to be able to, in those situations when someone has their email compromised, to be able to quickly shut things down before they those emails get out, I think that's the challenge. That's probably the hardest. That's easier said than done.
Yeah, no, I get it. What are maybe some tools or processes, procedures, and things that we're doing that really does make a difference for a small business?
Sure.
To sleep a little easier at night with this stuff.
Yeah, I think the low-hanging fruit is multi-factor authentication, making sure that on people's email they have MFA, whether it's an application like Microsoft Authenticator, whether it's Duo. Duo is great because it can handle all of your 2FA needs, which is kind of nice. And then the other thing, really, again, super low-hanging fruit is just having a password manager, making sure that every login has its own distinct, unique password that is difficult to unlock. If you have a 13-character password with letters and figures and whatnot, numbers, there's no way a hacker's going to break into that. It would take billions of years with the best computers in the world working on that to crack that. So I think that's MFA and MFA and password manager, and then just training. Those are the three biggies I think that can help organizations protect themselves against business email compromise, which again is probably the biggest threat out there currently.
Yeah, I 100% would agree with all of that. As far as managing all that, though, it doesn't matter if you have, 10-person office, 20-person office, whatever. The way you go about managing that is going to be important. What are people that are looking, say if they're looking at a provider or currently have one, what are ways that they can check to ensure that they're doing their job? Because that's kind of the big question out there too. From what I've seen is like, yeah, we're running that. I think,
Sure.
Well, how do you know? Do you really know? What are some ways or some easy things that they can do or questions they can ask in order to to really determine like things are really being done the way they need to be done?
Yeah, I think every company should be asking their IT department, their service provider, whoever they're using, IT person, what are we doing to secure our environment? How are we protecting our data? What are we doing to make sure that our people are trained, our people understand what they need to do? From an email perspective, from a password perspective, and also what tool stack are we using? Do we have some type of not just antivirus, but smart antivirus, endpoint detection and response? Or what are we doing to make sure that websites aren't, people can't get to illicit websites or fraudulent websites that can dump data into our system or grab hold of a machine, things like that. So I think it's important for any organization to really ask those questions about what are we doing from a security perspective, and what more can we do?
Right.
There's always more that can be done. If time and money were no object, we could do everything. But what makes sense for any business? And I think organizations can ask those questions and should.
Yeah. If somebody's looking for a new provider, maybe they had a issue, compromise, or they're just not getting responses to their queries and things like that. Where would you have somebody start? What should they be looking for?
Sure.
I guess that's the question.
Yeah, I mean, you want to work with somebody that has a proven track record, who has been in the community for a period of time, that are working with businesses that are like yours, not only from an industry perspective, but also from a size perspective. And you want to understand that, who they're working with in terms of, their partners. From a vendor perspective, you want to get a good understanding of, are they a security first organization? Are they going to be proactive? Are they going to make recommendations to me? Or am I going to have to ask questions all the way through? You want someone who brings a plan, who brings a roadmap, and lays it out for you. So I think you want to look for a company that can provide that roadmap, that can provide those insights that are going to be important for securing your business, because ultimately downtime is the killer of business. If your folks aren't productive, if they can't work, that's what you want to try and avoid. And having a secure, stable, accessible environment is what you're looking for. And you want to ask those questions of anyone that you're working with, whether it's your in-house or outsourced. Those are the questions you should be asking.
What are maybe 3 top questions that would really determine for them if it's somebody that's just kind of going through the motions and just providing a service, and then the ones actually taking the proactive measures and then are that true partner? What would you say maybe 3 questions are that would be
3 questions is, when's the last time you met with your IT department, your IT provider, in terms of what we should be doing? Have they asked you about your business, what you want to do, what your concerns are, what your goals and objectives are? And then client testimonials. Do they have organizations that they work with that they're willing to give you their names, their contact information, so that you can ask them questions about how they've secured their environment, how they've managed their uptime. I think those are probably the 3 big ones.
Awesome. So to kind of piggyback off that, when somebody's kind of looking at a new provider, I think one of the things I've seen recently, or at least people that are looking for new providers, we see a lot of buying and selling of MSPs. And I think up until the last couple of years, I really never heard that question before. You being part owner of the company, I guess let's ask straight to you.
Sure.
Is Grit going to sell? And if not, what is the direction and path moving, in the next, say, 5-10 years?
Yeah, we have no plans to sell. We're very vested in the business. It's a business we are seeking to grow.
Mhm.
We're looking at potential acquisitions, looking to expand beyond Michigan. We're not interested in selling, and we're not interested in getting out. This is a business that we love. We love the clients that we work with. We love the industry that we're in. We love getting to know people in the industry and the business. In the business space in our communities, and working with them to help them further their business goals. We're still fairly young enough that we're not looking to get out anytime soon, but growth is definitely what we're looking at. Moving even further and deeper into the security space as well, as we see it's not going away. It's becoming a bigger problem, and we see a lot of opportunity in working with companies to help shore that up, so that they can keep doing what they're supposed to be doing and not constantly, having their head on a swivel, worrying about the next potential cyber attack. Let us worry about that. Let us put those defenses in place for you. But yeah, we're definitely looking to grow.
Is that an important question to ask? This, from a client's perspective, if they're looking at a new partner? I
think that's a great question to ask, because outside influences can often affect how an organization conducts their business. In terms of trying to manage, every business has to manage costs. There's no question about that. But where are they managing their costs at the expense of what? So, if you're going to manage costs, are you going to do it at the expense of client and customer satisfaction and the service that you provide, or are you going to look for it in other ways? With outside investors and things like that, they don't really care much where the cost comes out. And labor generally is the largest line item for any business. So that's something that I think any business looking for an IT provider might want to ask those questions in terms of, do you have owners? Are you financed from an outside organization? Are you looking to sell? What are your plans? Because I think that can shed some light as to what that long-range potential relationship can look like. And that's important. Not everyone wants to be switching their IT company every year or 2 years. Ideally, you're going to have a long-term relationship with that business. It's something you don't want to have to worry about anymore. And when there's VC money and there's investors, private investors, outside investors that are infusing money, they're looking for a return. And again, the quickest way to provide that is to cut on some of the higher line items, which is people. And in the service industry, people are the product in a sense, right?
Yeah.
It's the service that you provide to the clients that's important.
Yeah, I would say it's a big differentiator between a lot of companies. Is the people that work there versus it's more important, I would say, than a lot of the tools and the stuff that's out there as well.
Yeah, because we're all using the same tools for the most part. Very similar tools. There's a pool of EDM. There's a pool of I should say EDR. There's a pool of backup devices and things like that. But it's the people that make the difference. It's the people that pick up the phone when you call. It's the people on the other end of the line when you're having a problem. That's the differentiator.
Speaking of which, you've been in the industry for a while, and I know, what is the average tenure for people in IT compared to, say, our organization? Yeah,
it's funny. We have folks that have been here, over 15 years.
Wow.
We have folks that have been here over 10 years. We've hired a lot of people as well because we are growing. But for the most part, people come here and they stay here, and one of our goals and objectives is to make sure that Grit is an organization that engineers, technicians, and people want to work at. And we know that as we take care of our organizations, we take care of our people, they're going to take care of our clients.
Yeah, no, that it all stems downward, at that point. Absolutely.
It flows from there.
Absolutely. I think kind of on that, I think I'd like to kind of wrap it, but would you have any other final kind of thoughts, or maybe if there's one thing that people really should be looking at as far as the future in the next year or two, what is it? And can you give some details on that?
Yeah, I think it's really two things. One is how do you secure your organization? Number two, and number three, let me start over again. I think the first thing is security. If you don't have a secure environment, you don't have an environment. That environment is open to the outside. So security, number one. And secondly is, how do you leverage your technology? How do you leverage your environment to make sure that it's always available, accessible, and stable for your organization? Getting out of on-premises type of devices and getting into cloud-based devices that you can access either through the internet, through cellular devices, so that no matter where your people are in the world, they can do the work that they need to be doing for your organization, and that there's the appropriate security and things in place. So I think it really is kind of shoring up the home base, shoring up the defenses and the security in your environment, and then looking for ways to move your resources outside that environment safely, so that people can access what they need when they need it, wherever they are.
Okay. I like that. Cool. Well, this has been good. Thank you so much for taking some time. And it's not always you're not always available because you're on the Grand Rapids side, leading the charge over there. But appreciate you coming down and sitting down.
Thanks, Matt.
Awesome.